Hello and welcome. We have a day of news. We're going to start off with the Duke of Sussex, who on April the 8th made a public appearance in the UK on Tuesday at London's Royal Court of Justice. As we know, the Duke of Sussex is in court to challenge the decision to uphold the downgrading of its security arrangements in the UK. So there have been a lot of good arguments, and I'll give you the highlights here. So first of all, the Duke of Sussex, he stepped out. He was wearing a dark suit and a blue tie. And in the court, he was sat in the row behind his lawyers. He was also with a notepad, pen, and a bottle of water. So his barrister, Shahid Fatima KC, laid out her opening arguments as the Duke of Sussex watched the proceedings unfold. And she told the Court of Appeal that Prince Harry was singled out for different unjustified and inferior treatment, in quotes, when a government committee decided not to give him the highest level of security protection while he is in the UK. But she also said that Prince Harry did not believe he was automatically entitled to the same protection as when he was a senior working royal. His case, of course, is challenging the way that the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, known as RAVEC, took the decision. It decided not to get its risk management board to assess the Duke of Sussex's case, but to come up with a bespoke assessment, in quotes. This involved Harry being given security on a case-by-case basis when he visits the UK. And Harry's barrister made the case that it was wrong for the RAVEC committee not to follow its standard procedures because it did not have the expert analysis of the risks facing the prince, which it needed. And in a written submission, she also wrote, quote, "This appeal concerns the most fundamental right to safety and security of a person," continuing saying, Harry's security does not appear to have been discussed at any formal RAVEC meeting, and there are no official notes or detailed minutes recording the approach to be taken to his security and the rationale for it, end quote. It's also quite interesting that she notes in early 2020, Harry was not informed about aspects, including the terms of reference, how RAVEC would make the decision on his security. So she says, therefore, he was not in a position to make any informed representation to RAVEC. In her in-person legal argument, Fatima also told the court that RAVEC did not conduct a risk management board assessment for the Duke. This means that RAVEC didn't have the expert analysis it needed to consider if he should be treated similarly to those in the other VIP category. So I will add here that the court discussing details of Harry's security protection will be considered in a closed session tomorrow. So they're not going to talk openly about everything. Of course, we understand that. But this is quite interesting. The documents that we have here, and I'll put a screen grab on the page of this video, where you can see we have insight into how the VIP Security Committee works. So this is how the committee decides the level of protection, and it breaks down the risk into what amounts to an equation. So this is their equation. The first category is capability plus intent, and that equals threat. The next one is threat plus vulnerability equals likelihood, and then likelihood plus impact equals risk. And then they put VIPs into three categories. The first is role-based. So these are likely to be senior royals, and then the other one is other VIP category. That's literally what it's called. And then occasional category. That's the third one. And then they say, however, the category the prince was put into following a review in April 2019 is redacted as a result of what's described as a review of likely impact of a successful attack and mitigation for his vulnerability. Harry also submits that he should have been informed about how decisions about his security were being made, and his security is currently being provided on a case-by-case basis by RAVEC, and he has to give 28 days notice. The court filing suggested he was unhappy with the decision during COVID, when RAVEC determined his only protective security would be redacted, in quotes. And of course, as I mentioned before, it had been decided that some of the evidence could not be given in public, though the judge did want as much as possible heard openly. There was even a stream of this on Sky News on YouTube. Once again, Prince Harry's barrister told the court that Ravik had failed to apply its own terms of reference by not getting an assessment from an expert specialist body, calling the Risk Management Board RMB, and instead coming up with a different and so-called bespoke process. Quote, "The appellant does not accept that bespoke means better. In fact, in his submission, it means that he has been singled out for different, unjustified, and inferior treatment," she said. So she also said that Harry's case should be considered under terms of reference and subject to the same process as any other individual being considered for protective security by Ravik, unless there is a cogent reason to the contrary. She also said that Ravik's decision for not carrying out a Risk Management Board RMB assessment does not stack up. As we know, Harry has previously argued that the safety of his family lies at the heart of this case. He and Meghan have sought to keep their two young children, Archie and Lilibet, largely out of the public eye. Harry told the court in a previous hearing, quote, "The UK is central to the heritage of my children and a place I want them to feel at home as much as where they live at the moment in the US. That cannot happen if it's not possible to keep them safe when they are on UK soil," end quote. So after a short lunch break, everyone was back and the court was in session. Prince Harry as well was seated in the same seat he was as earlier in the morning. And his barrister Shahid Fatima, KC, continued to present his case to the Court of Appeals judges. This part of the hearing focused on whether there needed to be a Risk Management Board assessment before a decision was taken over the Duke's security. There were parts of Shahid Fatima's case that she could not go into fully and will be heard in the closed session tomorrow. Fatima addressed the court, arguing a previous judge who considered the case last year had made errors on the decision Ravik took not to ask its Risk Management Board to make a new assessment of the prince's security. So she said the quality of the reasoning, in quotes, for taking this approach should have been high because of the safety of Prince Harry justifies the need for particularly cogent reasoning. And Fatima said the previous judge wrongly concluded that the committee could make decisions on Harry's security without getting an analysis of the risk by a separate specialist body, because obtaining that analysis was expressly required by Ravik's terms of reference. So she said in essence that they went against their own terms. Yes, Fatima said that Ravik diverted, in quotes, from its usual process and imposed a bespoke, in quotes, arrangement on Harry not used for any other individual. Harry maintains this left him singled out, as I mentioned before, for those different, unjustified, and inferior treatment. So what a strong argument from Prince Harry's barrister right there, and I'm hoping that all of the points that she pointed out will be taken into account as they make this decision. So the other side, they did respond to this. The government urged the court to dismiss the appeal. In summary, in their written submission, I will add this in here, they said that Ravik was entitled to tailor a different approach for Harry based on his specific situation, and that constituted a valid reason to depart from the usual process outlined in Ravik's terms of reference. The bespoke process, they said, was better suited to Harry's circumstance and backed by existing documentation. This was their quote. "We are in territory in which there is no right or wrong answers. There are matters of judgment against broad, soft-edged criteria in which the security expertise of those involved is likely to be critical." End quote. In other words, when Harry needs protection, according to them, they wanted to provide it on a case-by-case basis. And the Home Office said that for them it was a valid approach, and the committee which decided to take it did nothing wrong. So those are the summaries, and after that, Prince Harry left the courtroom. The journalists, lawyers, and court staff also left. So tomorrow, the hearing will continue in the morning. The court will sit for part of the day in private, meaning the press won't be able to sit in on proceedings for that part. That's because there are sensitive security arrangements for members of the royal family and other VIPs that must be discussed. All in all, these are the highlights and standouts, with some very strong arguments from Prince Harry's lawyers, and we are hoping for a good result for the Duke of Sussex and his family. So the appeal is due to be heard over 2 days, and a decision is expected at a later date. So keep it here for more updates and share your thoughts and standouts in the comment section below. And now we have news of Meghan's new podcast debuted with Bumble founder Whitney Wolfe Herd as her first guest. She launched her new show, kicking things off with a powerful conversation. So I will give a couple of highlights and standouts here. They talked about some very important things, but before we do, Meghan did share a very sweet post on her Instagram. And this is the caption: "Being an entrepreneur can start young. By the way, all these years later, I'm still selling cookies. Tune in for the premiere episode of Confessions of a Female Founder featuring my dear friend Whitney, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts." And then she tags Limonada Media. And we have these never before seen pictures of Meghan as a child. I think she's a brownie here, with some of the young girls alongside her selling cookies. Look at her, so active and cute in their uniforms, out there selling cookies. Look at that. It's a full circle moment. But at least, Meghan, these are your very own branded cookies. Adorable. So let's get into the highlights and standouts of Meghan's conversation with Whitney Wolfe Herd. The two discussed the delicate balance of motherhood and career. Meghan revealed that both she and Wolfe Herd experienced postpartum preeclampsia. And then this is what Meghan shared, quote, "We both had very similar experiences, though we didn't know each other at the time with postpartum, and we both had preeclampsia. Postpartum preeclampsia," end quote, Meghan said. So Meghan did not clarify whether the condition occurred after the birth of Archie or Lily. Whitney also is a mother to 2 sons. So Meghan continued, quote, "It's so rare and so scary, and you're still trying to juggle all of these things, and the world doesn't know what's happening. Quietly, and in the quiet, you're still trying to show up for people, mostly for your children. But those things are huge medical scares," end quote. Wolfe Herd agreed. She also talked about Meghan in the public eye, where they talked about the media backlash, in quotes, that Meghan had experienced in recent years. Meghan opened up about that with Whitney Wolfe Herd. She herself unpacking the effects of online backlash following her departure from Tinder. She said this to Meghan, quote, "When I see the way that you've been treated in the media, which is a magnitude I'll never understand, my heart breaks for you. It's not fair and it's brutalizing," end quote. So Meghan agreed, saying, quote, "Well, maybe because you understand it in whatever degree, you know how to show up for me," end quote. Analysis from Statista in 2020 showed that Meghan received overwhelmingly negative media coverage, with 43% of articles deemed negative, 36% neutral, and only 20% positive. Between 2018 and 2019, she received twice as many negative headlines as positive ones, according to data. This is also a comparison, nothing to do with Kate in particular, but this is a comparison. Headlines about Meghan's sister-in-law were 47% neutral, 45% positive, with just 8% considered negative. So just think about that. And comparable content, including similar outfits and holding their baby bumps, sparked diametrically opposed treatment by newspapers. We've covered that here. They talked about media criticism and how they've overcome. So Herd recalled the experience of walking through an Irish airport, seeing Meghan on the cover of every single magazine and newspaper. Recalling her surprise, Whitney said, "I'm in Ireland. You're back home in California, doing school drop-off. You're the front page of every single one of these things." She said, quote, "I just had a moment where I was like, wow, this is a different beast," end quote. She said of the intensity of the spotlight on Meghan. And Meghan replied, quote, "But it doesn't feel different, whether it's at that scale or not. But I do think there is so much to be said for your ability to exist even in the presence of that. Like, that takes a very strong cookie, Wolf Herd replied to her. So she also remembered having gone through her own media storm caused by a legal issue when she worked at Tinder and not wanting to leave her house for the fear of what people would say. She said, "I shrunk into this shell of myself." And Meghan also agreed with that, saying, "Sometimes people turtle," and then she gave this fantastic piece of advice. She said that the challenges that people go through, there is a point where she said, quote, "You're going to have to decide whether you're going to cower or if you're going to conquer or rise above it," end quote. And I think Meghan has chosen to rise. Another highlight was them talking about the Sussexes debuting Archie during a public photo call just 2 days after his birth in May 2019. And Wolf Herd said, quote, "I mean, I'll never forget the image of you after you delivered Archie and the whole world was waiting for his debut," end quote. She also went on to say, "How is this woman putting on heels and going and debuting a child like this, you know, beautiful outfit in front of the entire world? I could barely face a doorbell delivery for takeout food in a robe. I was like, please don't look at me, leave it down the street," end quote, prompting a laugh from Meghan. That is so funny. The pair also talked about becoming moms in the pandemic. Meghan said that there was so much working from home. And in post-pandemic culture, she said, quote, "I don't leave the house to go to an office. My office is here." The Duchess has also previously spoken about why she chose to film her Netflix show and develop her lifestyle brand locally so that she could be available for her children whenever they needed her. She said this, "Lily still naps. She gets picked up early and she naps. She only has a half day in preschool. If she wakes up and wants to find me, she knows where to find me, even if my door is closed to the office. She'll be sitting there on my lap during one of these meetings with a grid of all the executives. I would not have it any other way. I don't want to miss those moments. I don't want to miss pickup if I don't have to. I don't want to miss drop off," end quote. I love how Meghan says that Lily is just on her lap as she's having those high power board meetings, even if they're on Zoom. There is Lily. And she also said, this is quite interesting. She said, quote, "What I do love the most about having young kids in this chapter while I'm building business is the perspective that it brings, because you're building something while your child is going through potty training, and both are just as important. It's like, great, okay, where's the Cheerios? Well done. And then you're championing your team 10 minutes later about something that's really high value for the world. In your own world, that's super high value. And in Lily's world, that's super high value," end quote. Also, Wolf Herd talked about how technology is a beautiful tool for parents because they can dial in and be present and do a great job on the call while they sit in a carpool line outside school. So yes, I love the candid anecdotes. Meghan as well opening up about how she was anxious before the As Ever launch. Even as we know, her brand sold out its first production in under half an hour. She admitted that she was overthinking everything as the launch day neared. She said, quote, "For example, a month ago, I was absolutely consumed with packaging. Boxes, it's all I could think about. From eco-friendly packing peanuts to sticker placements, nothing escaped her 3 a.m. intensity." I will say it like that. And her guest offered a little perspective and a trick for calming the nerves. She said, quote, "Will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days?" She said of her rules of fives, "If it's not gonna matter in 5 years, throw it out of the window." So it's quite interesting that she was quite nervous before the launch, and we know it was all so successful. People showed up for her, and I'm sure that was so good for her to see in the end. So I love these highlights. Which were yours? Share that with us in the comment section below. As always, before we log off, allow me here to thank those of you who support this channel financially and shout out a couple of you here by name. A very special thank you to you, Martha Jones. Thank you for showing your incredible generosity by giving through PayPal. I'm so moved by your warmth and care, and I pray for God to bless you and yours. I appreciate you for your continued love and support. Thank you for choosing to accompany me here on this YouTube journey. I appreciate your kindness and care. I love you. God bless you, and thank you. A very special thank you to you. You go by the handle Maggie Jackson. You are appreciated and loved. Thank you for going above and beyond and for your consistent support of my work here on YouTube. Allow me here to express my sincerest appreciation and love. Thank you for making a difference here in our community. Your presence is a gift. Thank you and God bless. And now a very special thank you to those of you who gave through Super Thanks. Thank you to you. You go by the handle Gail Tapscott 7606. You are such a blessing. Thank you for the tremendous boost and encouragement. I genuinely appreciate you and cherish you. You have such a caring spirit, and thank you for choosing to be a part of this community. You are so dear. We love you. God bless. Once again, thank you to all who support this channel financially, to those who like, comment, and share. Thank you. If you liked this update, give it a thumbs up, click subscribe, follow on social media. Links will be in the cards and in the pinned comment. I love you all. Keep it here for more. And I will catch you in the next one. Have a blessed one.